I'm here with designer and author Mary Hettsmansperger. Welcome, Mary.
Hi.
Today we're talking about more is more. And your style is very artistic, very layered, and you always bring good ideas for using components in different ways. I love this necklace project.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, I like the idea of the layering, and I love the idea of having a focal point that is a little bit more.
Right, and you just keep building and building and building. Where do we start?
Well, first you have to decide what your focal point is going to be. And I've chosen, just for this project, I've chosen art clay, which is really great fun. It's a copper clay, and what I love about it is you can torch fire it. So you basically pull just a little bit off, and you want to keep it under wraps because it tends to get a little bit dried out if it gets in the air too long. You basically just make a ball, and I'm just using stainless steel screen. You can use copper or brass, but what I've found, especially with the torch firing, is the stainless tends to hold up a little bit better.
Okay.
And basically, I am just pushing this through.
Oh, look at that.
Oh, it's so much fun. And you can really extrude it. The one rule here is that you have to have enough clay in the back to hold on the little extruded part. So you don't want to push it too far out or you're just going to end up with spaghetti, copper spaghetti.
Would you say like a penny's thickness?
Probably about that. Yeah,
okay.
No, probably about that. That's about right.
Okay.
So you put it like through there, and you don't want to, you want to kind of gauge what you're going to be, going around. So that's kind of important. But the other thing is you need to let it dry. And then the way that I fire these, I actually put them on a tripod with a screen, and I just take a propane torch and come up from, like below it, start to heat it, and then once I see it starting to get glowing, then I'll kind of move my torch up and move it down and keep it kind of at a really nice glowing state for about, about 2-3 minutes.
Okay.
So basically, the way that I start to make that, and I don't know if you noticed this, but it's got a really nice edge around it too. And since it's more is more, you want that sort of, I guess, focal point to look like it's really prestigious. So what I do on this is I first heat my copper with, again, my propane torch, and I'm going to make my copper nice and annealed. And what I want to do is I want to first poke my hole. So to punch out my hole, I'm going to use a disc cutter here. And basically, I slide it in.
Okay.
And
it has some great colors from your torch, too.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
And we come in like this. I'm going to use the disc cutter, and basically, I just let it slide in. If you kind of force it, you run the risk of really ruining it. I always use a softer hammer rather than just a regular steel hammer because it'll distribute the weight a little bit better. So you want to come in and hammer. And I always let it just fall through.
Then you have a nice clean cut, too.
You have a nice clean cut, and you don't jam your cutter. And then I pull this out. So I can slide this out of here. And then we've got the piece here.
Okay, and that's going to become your window.
This is going to become my window, but as you notice, it's still very flat. So to create just a little bit more dimension, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my dapping block here, my dapping tool, and I basically come in like this. And just remember that this copper needs to be really annealed. So this is the point where you want to take it right from the flame and quench it and then bring it right over and start working because you don't want to do any hammering or texturing at this point yet. So I'm going to come in, and you know what I'm going to do first? Oh yeah, much better side on the other side. So I'm going to come in like this.
Did you choose it for color?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So I'm going to come in like this, and I'm basically creating a little bit of a ridge. I'm kind of pushing it down, and then I gently come in, sort of flatten it out. And then I kind of look to see how I'm doing. I'm doing really good. So I'll just keep going a little bit. And then once I get it kind of, bulged out, then I want to come in and just gently hammer it down. And then at this point is when I actually use my scissors. And I'm really not crazy about real sharp edges. And so what I do is I actually come in, and I always tell everybody to keep their scissors at the 12 o'clock position and then basically move the metal.
Okay.
And it makes a much nicer edge. Now also, at the same time then, I've got this little piece started. You can come in with steel wool and clean up your edges if you want and really make it nice and smooth. But now you've got basically this sort of look here. I'm going to set this one aside.
Yeah, so you've created your frame.
You've created the frame. And then on the silver, this is a 24 gauge silver, just like the copper. And what I do with it is I just hammered it. So I just made it look a little bit more interesting.
Because it needs more texture.
It needs more texture. Right. And it makes it look a bit more interesting, and it also softens those edges when we sort of decal the edges.
Okay, and that piece is actually going behind
the
frame.
So I'm going to do this like this, and then this goes here. And then what's fabulous is these wonderful components that really set off a window. And so whenever I'm thinking about designing, you want to start from the top layer and work down. So thinking about that, these two are going to be the first connection. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to poke a hole, and I'm going to have you insert a little brad in these.
Okay.
A brad is a great addition to Cold Connections because it's so easy. And you basically, I have these holes punched already, but I just did them with the hole punch, and they're going to be like a pattern for the copper. So I'm working that through, and you want to make sure that it's got a nice clean cut on the back. And then I'm going to
just do one at a time, right?
We'll just do one at a time.
Okay,
so,
well, let me put on my optics so I can see a little better here.
Alrighty.
Okay,
and
since
then
those brads are tiny.
Yes, they are very tiny, and I will hand you a brad here. Here you go.
Okay, so keep everything, oops, I'm sorry.
Now what you have to do is you need to insert it in the hole all the way through, and then, and this is where you really need to see, is you've got to open up the two prongs. There you go.
Okay, and you can combine the different metallic colors too. That looks great.
Yeah.
Now, and then this will be hidden by the piece.
Right, and that's the most important thing too with the brads is you want to make sure that you only use them where you're going to be able to sandwich them in between pieces.
Right.
And what I always do with the brads is I come in and I hammer a little bit on the top, just start flatten it out, but I also hammer on the back just gently, just to make sure it's nice and secure. Okay.
Okay.
And you know, I could put the other ones in, but I want to get to the eyelets, so I'm going to go ahead and speed through that to show you how this. So I would actually put my 3 holes in, and I do them one at a time because you won't want to take a chance of it not being aligned when you get to that 3rd hole. I'm going to come in like this and come into the back here. Okay, and this is how I'm going to sandwich this all together. So now the 2nd set has to be done with an eyelet.
So you punch the top layer first?
Punch the top, and I punch all of the holes in the top first, because what you want to have, you want to make sure that you get those all in before you start the process of connecting.
Okay. And eyelets and brads both kind of take the place of riveting in a way, or
well,
they add
an eyelet is really more like a tube rivet. It's just the great thing about an eyelet, it's already started the process. So it's kind of nice because you've got the opportunity to come in.
That looks great with the ring on top too.
Oh, I love the ring on the top. And now you want to again set one at a time. You want to make sure it's good and open.
So you use that as your template.
Right, and I want to show you a cute tool I've made. This is just using 18 gauge wire, and I've hammered a little bit, about 1/4 of an inch, 1/2 an inch from the edge. And I'm going to pick up my eyelet. This makes life so much easier. So I'm going to pick up the little eyelet, and if you'll notice I have different lengths of eyelets, but knowing I'm just going to connect 2 pieces of metal together, it's really simple or it's really good to use just the thinner piece.
Oh, so you place it through all the layers that way.
Right, and then you're able to push it through and line it up this way. Now this time on this I did not catch my screen, but in one of these holes I will. I'll catch that screen.
Okay.
And then I'm going to come in, and once I have it all inserted, hold on, takes a little bit of a finesse
Yeah.
and luck.
Let me put it on your block.
And then I'm going to just insert it over on the block.
Okay, well let's take a look at the one that you finished, because that one has been hammered. You're just going to tap the top of the hammer.
Yeah,
right?
and I usually use an eyelet setter. So I just put it on the top.
Here, let's see you do it then.
Oh, no problem. Just here, and then just very gently. And what's really nice is the eyelets are going to look the same, whether you set them from the front or the back.
It looks great.
Yeah, but when you've got all that dimension, you want to come in from the front. It makes it much better.
Oh, yeah. And at the very top of the finished one there, did you roll it around a
I did.
dowel?
I just used a really nice pair of long needle nose pliers, and I just rolled it down. So you can kind of...
So we can see here. Like that?
Yep, exactly.
There we go.
And you can adjust that according to however you want
For your thickness of your necklace
of
cord?
your necklace cord.
Oh, great.
And here's just another example of using, you know, a little component together and using it as a frame.
Oh, that's a great idea. You know, we're almost out of time, but let's take a quick look at these other necklaces. They're so pretty. I love your work, Mary.
Oh, thanks.
You're welcome.